Hello, friends, family, freaks in between. Welcome to episode 20. First and foremost, let me address this is post-production Tub talking to you. I recorded the episode and then immediately started breaking down all of my gear and then realized I didn't record an intro. So if you're watching on YouTube, yes, there's video. I'm just too stupid and too much of a green rookie to remember to record an intro after I am done recording an episode. If you're audio only, you don't know the difference, and I'm just self-snitching. So hello. Thank you for being here. I don't know what I titled this yet, and I love the freedom in that. Thank you for being a part of this, and let's just get straight into it. This is episode 20. I really wanted to delve into wording. I know it sounds a little weird. Bear with me. I feel like I have a point to make here, as I do with every time I talk. And I think it's super important how you phrase things. I think it's super important the words that you use. I think it's super important the intent. And I think there are ramifications and repercussions to it that maybe people don't actively think about as often. I think it's a huge underutilized tool, especially in our generation, because it's seen as more of a proper traditional value. And therefore, I think it's kind of underrated. I think that if you got better at the way you word things, or maybe spiced up your vocabulary, or increased the volume of words you use, that there would be a lot of benefits to that. And that's what I dive into. And, I get all my little tangents here and there, but I try to keep it to the script, more or less. But yeah, that's really all I have to say. Hope you guys have a great Tuesday, or whatever day you're listening to this. And yeah, I'll catch you on the next one. This is episode 20. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye. Before I dive into today's topic, I had a fun random thought while I was setting up, and I'm going to be outfit repeating a lot on here. First of all, you can't even see my pants or my shorts. All you're getting is the t-shirt and the hat. And I don't be making that kind of money to be pulling fits on you guys. I got like 4 to 5 hats that I got in rotation. If I got a good hair day, maybe I'll sit down with no hat. And then I got like my handful of t-shirts that I think are good enough to have on camera. Everybody's got those shitty ones that they sleep in, but just a random thought, before we dive into it today. But today's topic, first of all, actually, we're gonna go a little further into a bit of a tangent mode here because I'm feeling it. I am a little worried that I'm going to run out of topics to talk about on solo episodes. A man can only monologue so much, and I plan on having more and more guests on, especially now that I have video. Life's been crazy lately. I said that on the last episode and it has not let up. So being able to sneak an episode in during the week, that's my win for this week. I wanted to do a lot more. I wanted to be a lot more quote unquote productive, but sometimes doing just what you need to is what you need to do, if that makes any sense at all without sounding like Confucius. But yeah, I was thinking about it, and I always lob ChatGPT my questions when I feel low on creative power, because it is a great outsource of cognitive ability when I am tired, and I really don't want to turn it into a bad reliant habit. But for right now, kind of fleshing it out back and forth on topics, it's nice. But yeah, I was kind of worried lately that I'm going to run out of stuff to talk about, and I don't think that'll be the case when I have guests on, because I'll kind of let them guide wherever the conversation's going, and their inputs will be unique in their own way. But I'm really scared of having an episode that kind of comes off as oh God, a repeat episode. He already talked about that on episode 4 or whatever. And I know inevitably, if I plan on doing these for a long time, I'm going to have to kind of recycle some topics, unless I get into like really weird niche shit, and I don't even know if you guys will have an interest in that. I don't even know if I'll be interested in talking about like stuff like that. We'll see. I'm still feeling out with where my wheelhouse is. But while figuring it out and conversing with AI, I stumbled across something that I haven't really talked about lately, or in general, really. And I've decided that not only do I want to make this a bit of a short and sweet episode, I feel like I get to put out more digestible stuff at times, and it allows people who maybe don't listen that often to have something to listen to, because it's not as intimidating as like 2.5 hours if it's like 45 minutes. But all that to say, today's topic is going to be wording. And I know that sounds a little odd, and hopefully my intro has served me well, my mystery non-existent Schrodinger's intro of the future, but it's wording. I realize the older that I get, the more that I care about how, not only like how sentences and conversations are worded, but specifically using the correct words and sticking to correct definitions. And this may come off as a bit of a dry or dull topic at first, but genuinely, I think it not only shapes the social relationships that you have with the people around you, it shapes how you come off to strangers. It shapes your own mindset with yourself. And I feel like nowadays, particularly, again, in the social media age, I feel like it matters more than ever when people have cared less more than ever. I know that there is a huge relevancy for young people to have some sort of like counterculture, rebellion against traditional values. I know that to be the case of not just our generation, but any generation. And I know that some of that comes down to kind of how stingy people will be about what words you use, sounding proper, making sure you're, not using too much slang or profanity. And any listener of this podcast knows that I am a big profanity fan. Fucking completely deregulate profanity. Bring it into the business space. I don't care. Make it professional. But in terms of, I particularly have an interest a lot of the times in social dynamics, and I know that you guys know that. But I really, really care a lot about how I word things, how I come off to people. Even like when I'm messaging people, I will type stuff out and delete it and go back and type it out again. And I know I'm not unique in that aspect. I know a ton of people do that, but even the little things where, for instance, and I give this advice to my friends all the time, if you're trying to communicate a difficult topic or a difficult conversation to someone that you care about, a strategy that I have discovered, not pioneered, but learned about from others, is using I and me language way more often than you use you language, because what you're capable of doing in those instances is disarming and lowering the walls of the person that you are trying to get through to. So we'll go with the basic example, but if you're in a relationship and your partner has done something that particularly has rubbed you the wrong way, I think it matters heavily that you stick to I and me language, not you language, even if you're in the right. I know a lot of people feel like how they should conduct themselves or how they should go about conversations with partners ranges heavily based off of if they're in the right about whatever happened. If your partner fucked up and they clearly are in the wrong, there has never been a better opportunity for you to display empathy, and kindness, because you will want that back when you inevitably are the one who fucks up. And the only true incentive for your partner to do so, outside of obvious, like hopefully obvious standards for relationships, is how you conduct yourself when the tables turn, when the shoe's on the other foot. Are you kind, calm, and understanding when you get fucked over a little bit by someone you love? You don't need to extend yourself to this length if it's not for a loved one. If it's for some random schmuck, show respect, don't act an ass. But a lot of times, if you have any intention on maintaining a very serious relationship with people, whether it be platonic or romantic, you absolutely 100% need to be way more forgiving than average if you want, an above average relationship. I have had, and I've said this before on here, but I have had many difficult conversations that I really did not want to have with either romantic partners or with really close friends of mine, where if I had told people who don't really know me or maybe aren't as invested in my life what this person did to fuck me over and how I went about it, I'd get the typical response that I always hear, which is, oh, I'd never do that. Fuck that. I'd break up with them, or fuck that. I'd go off on them. Or the occasional, like, nah, I'd have to beat their ass. Like, all of that shit. And you really have to consider in that moment if this person is worth it. And why they did what they did and where they're coming from, because I also am a huge advocate of cutting people off. There are a ton of people, I think, who are maintaining relationships that should have been done a long time ago. And I know many external factors play a role in whether or not people do that, but just as much as I love preaching kindness and forgiveness and empathy, I also am a huge fan of knowing when to walk away from a toxic dynamic. And the funny thing is, my advice on how you conduct yourself and how you word the phrases and particular sentences that you are stringing together, my advice stays the same on both sides of that coin, which is, I don't want to say essentially act like there's always a camera on you, but maybe that's a good standard to start from. But be honest, be empathetic, and stand your ground, and be respectful. And if you can't do that, don't talk to them. Walk away. Put a bookmark in it, or never talk to them again, whatever you prefer. But I would always much rather not conduct any conversation than conduct a disrespectful one. And it's not easy, but if you really can get yourself in the framework of it's the only way to a actual solution or outcome that benefits you in the long run, and maybe even shift your identity a little bit to be something along the lines of, I am the type of person who stays calm and in control of themselves during conversations, and I am not the type of person who loses control due to emotions and lashes out, or XYZ fill in the blank. But when let's reel it back a little bit. When someone is talking to you and they've done something wrong, you want to be able to conduct and communicate that in a way where there's actually real progress. And the best way, in my opinion, is to say something along the lines of, this happened, it made me feel this sort of way, and I am now in this space about this. If your partner has, I don't know, any empathetic bone in their body and they know they fucked up, they'll apologize, right? And that's actually another another topic I think is super relevant to this, which is I think people apologize way too fucking much. And I mean that in two ways. One, I mean that in I think people apologize way too much out of politeness. I think that I wish a lot of very kind people knew how to also like put their foot in the ground and grow a bit of a backbone. And that's kind of separate, but I don't know. I'm turning into like a stern old man. And maybe it's a bit of older generations of my family that I haven't even met starting to like cement into me as I become more of an adult. But I really am getting sick and tired as I get older of people apologizing when they don't actually mean it. People apologize as a scapegoat, as a basically get off of my ass free card, as a I already told you I'm sorry, why are you still upset stance. But in my opinion, and let me take all this with a grain of salt really quick. I'm not perfect. There's a chance in the future that I do exactly what I'm saying I'm getting tired of. So I don't want to seem like I'm some sinless creature preaching downward on everyone. I know the difference between giving advice and following it, and it's really fucking hard. So all of this has a big asterisk on it, but I'm going to be doing my best as a person, and I hope you are too. But apologies should mean remorse. Remorse should mean regret. Regret should mean a change in behavior with intention of never doing it again. And the amount of people that I have met that their apology, whether they realize it or not, means nothing to me because their actions are way louder than their words, and they will apologize to me and they don't care. They regret the fact that we are in an uncomfortable situation where they need to apologize, but they're not actually exercising the empathy muscle where they're putting themselves in my perspective, really realizing how that would suck and then going, dang, like I feel bad that I've made you feel this way. The thought of doing that again, maybe sickening is too heavy of a word, but it doesn't sound great. And now that I have this fresh perspective, I will take it into account moving forward and make sure that I do my best to never do it again. Apologies should be rare and meaningful and serious, because if you're able to conduct them that way, people will genuinely believe you and your apologies will actually really mean something. But honest to God, like if you did something and you're not sorry about it, like you shouldn't say sorry. Like even if it comes off as a little rude at first, if you still don't see the full picture, if you still don't feel like it's something you should feel sorry about, then don't say it. I think that's way more respectable and transparent than saying it just to qualm some uncomfortable conversation and make sure it ends early. But let me pull us back in a little bit here. When it comes to the way that we word things, I get a little bit on my high horse when it comes to purposeful, improper use of words, whether it be like white lies or omitting or twisting a narrative or something. But whether people realize they do it or not, people are smart. They're intuitive. They're creative, especially when they're on their heels. And I really have a personal standard where I try to conduct myself and my storytelling to a level of accuracy and detail that if suddenly a unbeknownst video surfaces of the event that I am recalling, I want my words to be accurate. I know a lot of people particularly if they feel like an event that happened would, that if that event got out, it would paint them in a bad light. They really get tempted to embellish, to omit, to lie. Let's be real. But I don't know, dude. In the age of technology, I feel less and less comfortable as the years go on with everything being so easily recorded, whether it be video or audio. It's really, really important if you, again, want your reputation to matter, want your word to matter, to be able to say what you mean, say what actually happened, and really know that if push came to shove and someone else was there, they could back up what you're saying. People are going to lie all the time, but evidence stands for itself. And I don't know. I think it really matters when it comes to if people are relying on you to be honest about yourself when you were the only one there for something, or maybe if it's a moment where you really could lay down your guard and admit to maybe the not the best light being shined on you. I think that's super respectable. But people will purposefully, I don't know, use words like, oh, they were so incredibly disrespectful and rude to me, when in reality maybe someone worded something a way that you didn't like, but they weren't actually being disrespectful. Or can you believe the horrible things that they said to me? And then a video surfaces and it wasn't bad at all. I don't know, stuff like that. It tends to get to me, especially when we're in a space where everything can just suddenly pop up as a video that you didn't know was taken. And I know that sounds like a little bit like Orwellian, a little bit like police state surveillance, like pessimistic, dystopian, but it's reality. I'm talking to a camera right now. I'm purposefully recording myself and leaving that digital footprint. And I think if you aren't going to do it for the principle itself, or if you aren't going to do it because you care a lot about being a truthful and honest person, then do it for the sake of the fact that now more than ever you can get your shit called out. And I think that, I don't know, I've mentioned before that I don't want to do, that I'll do a deep dive into politics when I feel like I'm ready. I legit was thinking about it today, and I really feel like I'll have to write an essay before I make the episode, and I'll have to do a lot of research because I really care about being accurate. And God forbid I come on here and mention something about Trump or Putin or Elon Musk, or name your favorite politician or political activist or whoever. God forbid I come on here and on record I am like terribly, demonstrably wrong on something very easily Googleable, right? With that being said, I will get slightly political. And something that, I don't know, has gone against this virtue that I think really matters of making sure you word things properly and know what you're saying and mean it is, I am exhausted of this overuse of certain words like racist, fascist, you name it. You're kind of getting the picture already just with those two. When, let's be so fucking real for a second, it's not that. People can be bigoted or ignorant or misinformed or just straight up stupid. But I remember when it first started up, when like this whole online wave of social justice and everything in that realm really started to pick up. And nothing bothered me more, and still to this day, than calling something fascist just because it's conservative, or calling something racist just because it is disagreeable. But I feel like people are so willing to completely redefine terms or stretch things completely out of context purely for the like delicious opportunity to slap someone with a label that is just like the worst thing that you can think of when it comes to telling someone that they're immoral. I really think intentions matter, especially when talking about politics, because I think too many people give out malevolent intent onto someone when in reality they were just stupid. The amount of times I have watched someone provide a conservative opinion and get told that they're just like a terrible fascist, when in reality this poor dude was doing his best and just ill-informed. How you're going about this, how you are countering him and getting your aha moment only makes him double down on what he previously believed. Because if someone as rude as you is disagreeing with them, then why on earth would they think that they need to be on your side? I think that I watched like it was 2.5 hour long podcast on kind of like cultural Marxism and the place of the dialogue between conservatives and liberals and all of that stuff lately. Very good. It was from a military channel, which I was not expecting, but it really does shine. It really made me think about how much people nowadays really aren't giving a absolute fuck about what they're saying, how they're saying it, how it's coming off, and how it's making the person they're saying it to feel, particularly in online forums. And don't get me wrong, I myself have said, like, I'm not trying to change lives here in the Instagram Reels comment section, okay? But if you know you're talking to a person, think back to all the times, if you can, to all the times that you have genuinely changed your mind on something, where you were in one camp and then you went to the other camp. And how many times did that happen because the enemy was just so right with all their logic and facts, and they just properly shamed you into changing your opinion? Or how many times was it a compassionate friend showing you the areas that you might have looked over? If you ever give a fuck about changing anyone's mind on anything, especially something as important as politics, why on earth would you not come to them from the perspective of a friend? It is the only way that you could actually do anything to change their mind. In this video that I watched, in this video podcast, video essay, whatever you want to call it, one of the examples that this guy used was this, and I forget the guy's name, so my apologies. You can pause this and Google it right away. But it was this jazz pianist, a black man, who has converted over like 200 KKK members and taken them away from the Klan and completely broken their worldview on white supremacy and racism. And the most effective tactic that he used the entire time was going up to them, respectfully shaking their hand, breaking bread, sitting down, having a meal with them, and talking. He doesn't flare up with emotions. He doesn't dunk on them in front of 100,000 people on Twitter. He doesn't post a Instagram story about them, shaming them with paragraphs. He sits down and he looks at some of the most hateful and twisted people in current modernity, and he greets them with nothing but open arms and compassion, and that's what works. I guarantee you, I've watched it. I have watched people online get fucking radicalized because they are constantly getting berated for their opinions. I watched people who are very mild-mannered, who were very center of the road, get pushed slowly into further and further extreme views because the opposing side just berated them and bullied them and made them feel like shit and brought up the most ridiculous, like, poor arguments for the sake of screaming out for brownie points. I really think that the reason, and this is me kind of completely going up on a bit of a political tangent here, so bear with me. But if anyone is anywhere near informed on the political climate nowadays, Gen Z is notably more conservative than millennial. I do not think that that is an accident. I do not think that that is just some weird natural ebb and flow of politics. I think it is a direct reaction to the complete overreaction of, like, left-wing theatrics and bullshit semantics coming from online discourse. Gen Z is the iPad kid generation as adults. Everything that these kids know about the world and how it works has come from their limited in-person interactions, which a chunk of it, especially in high school for them, was COVID. And two, their algorithms. And as they have been in their most susceptible, open, and like sponge phases, when they were in these fertile age ranges for mental growth and learning, was when the internet was at its like absolute worst in terms of political, one-sided, unfair discussions. I really think that so many of these kids are turning out to be these like conservative, Republican, New Age Christian, whatever you want to call them, because they watched so many people, corporations, entities, governments, act completely dishonest and make an ass out of themselves nationally, that they basically went, I want to be whatever the opposite of that is. And conservatives took them in with open arms. And I really think so much of that had to do with extreme wording. When you say things like, we live in the worst country on earth, or we live in the worst time, or we live in a fascist dystopia, or you name it, let's be real, you're not being honest. You're preaching. You're looking for validation. You're trying to one-up the prior person who was already trying to one-up the prior person. And it doesn't go unnoticed. It doesn't go unobserved. And I don't know, personally, I think that the left has an obligation to act classier and to act more reserved and more humble, because the left is always coming from this place of, we're the more educated side. Everyone who goes to like a major university or works in a high level intelligentsia career field is left wing. So if you're in this position of higher education, then you need to act like it. You need to be more nuanced. You need to be more patient. You need to be less emotional, less reactive when you are speaking to people who you believe to be less educated, whether that be accurate or not. And I don't know, another topic for another time. I won't completely delve into this yet because I don't even feel like I'm ready to feel like I can specifically cite things. I really want to deep dive it, and I will one day. But I also, if I can reel it back a little bit to more of like the social interaction scale, I care a lot about how I come off and how I word things, particularly to strangers, and not in a sense that I'm really, really worried about their opinions about me, but I know that first impressions matter. And I know that certain words, even subconsciously, hit different, feel different. being able, and I think this also like bleeds into everything's connected. You can't really completely isolate certain ideas or topics, but it also bleeds into the body language that you give off, being able to look someone in the eyes, flash them a smile, uh, say their name back at them, and kind of just warm your tone up, ask them how they're doing, genuinely mean it. Say something like, oh, you look fantastic today, rather than like, I like your shirt, which also works. But being able to say what you mean with intent and clarity is such a powerful social tool. It will, I don't know, it will provide a dynamic immediately out of the gate with someone who doesn't know you fully yet, where you're already going to start getting the benefit of the doubt from this person. You're already going to start warming them up. Obviously, it's not a cure-all. You're going to meet people who are stern and cold because that's what they love to do. They take pride in that shit. They love being the type of person that just can't be won over. I keep my circle small. I don't smile in pictures, whatever. I'm not particularly interested in winning those people over anyway. And usually those people get won over by me not caring about winning them over, ironically. But I think that, I don't know, I play around a lot in my head with how much truly is affected by our subconscious. I believe that that's where our thoughts come from, is our subconscious. If you try to essentially like do a little micro meditation and observe your next thought, you can't even really truly nail down where it came from, because you can't create the thought. You can't fabricate it. What it always feels like to me is there's this curtain there, and your thought just shoots out from behind the curtain, and you observe it, and you either let it pass or you act on it or you identify with it, whatever it may be calling for at the time. But I truly believe that area that it shoots out from behind you, behind that curtain, is your subconscious. And I think most people on a day-to-day basis are painfully unaware of how much their subconscious really, really, truly is what is steering the ship. And so I put a lot of thought and care into kind of like paying attention to what goes into my subconscious, what gets tossed behind that curtain, what ingredients and what tools and what mindsets and philosophies are going to be back there working while I'm not cognitively working on what I think, what I believe, how I feel, how I behave. And I say this because I think that also matters when you talk to someone else. When you're conducting a conversation with somebody, you are, whether you realize it or the other person realizes it, being absorbed by this person's subconscious. And I think that's why I put a lot of emphasis on like being warm and being friendly, using certain words and phrases, repeating their name back at them, XYZ, because this is where people get vibes from, right? This is where people get gut feelings, intuitions, all of these things. It is basically like the wispy smoke left over from their subconscious that they can't really grasp at, that is basically whispering to them, hinting, this is how I feel about this person. I feel like they do this. I feel like they said something like this. And so I really try to pay attention to what I'm saying. So for instance, like if you do a favor for someone and it's not a favor that should be taken lightly, when they say thank you, don't say anytime. You may not even think about it, but you should say something more along the lines of, I'm just so glad that I was able to do that for you when you needed it. or I'm very happy to help uh, if you need it when you reach out. Something along those lines. I don't like to use "you're welcome" too much. I think maybe it might be a cultural thing, but I think I got a little bit of fear in me that it comes off as a little snobby. I'm like, oh yeah, you're welcome. Like, I did that shit, you know? But if it's something that you don't want them to take lightly, that you don't want to be taken advantage of, then don't say anytime. Don't say no problem. Don't basically play it off for the sake of politeness that, oh, it's not a big deal to me. I could do this all day. If that's not how it is, really put some emphasis and thought behind it. Because this is the thing, in my opinion, and this is just my belief, even if they don't cognitively notice, that gets absorbed into their subconscious. And there is a profile that their subconscious will build on you if they interact with you enough, where they'll be able to understand, air quotes, your vibe and the vibe you give off and what you remind them of. And in my opinion, what they're really saying is subconsciously, I'm getting hints of past experiences or details that I wasn't consciously aware of, but I somehow still picked up on and recorded in this pink blob between my ears. And now I feel a certain way about it. It's, in my opinion, a good example of like the mechanism in action is if you've seen a movie a couple times and someone asks you what the opening scene is to the movie and you have no idea, which is totally normal. And then you see the first 2 seconds and then your brain immediately uploads the whole scene to your consciousness. And you're like, that's what that was. I remember now, right? That proves that those details, all of those details, because you're remembering color grading, you're remembering script, you're remembering like flashes from scene to scene, the plot progression, you're remembering suddenly everything from that scene if you were familiar with it. All of that comes rushing back off of like one trigger, right? What that tells me is that information was there the whole time, is properly stored in your brain, and yet when you were first asked about it, you cannot consciously recall it. But that does not mean it wasn't there. And that does not mean that it is not acting behind the curtain in the background, affecting and influencing your thoughts. And the proof that all it takes is like one slight purposeful cue to bring it all back to the forefront of your mind, I think that speaks volumes for how people remember how you speak and the words that you use and the phrases that you choose when you are conducting any sort of conversation or interaction with them. It may sound like I'm being way too detail oriented. It may sound like I'm being way too anal about this. I don't believe so. I really think that this stuff matters. And it's kind of why I wanted to make it the topic today, because I really don't think people actively think about it enough, how much everyone's subconscious, like the camera in front of my face, is just soaking in that information. And I think you can use it to your advantage. I think even if people don't even realize it, if you have been purposefully meticulous about the way you conduct yourself, the words you like to use, the catchphrases, the slang, the jargon, all of this stuff, you can build the exact vibe that you want this person to feel when they think of you, and you can have a lot more control over that. And I don't want it to sound like this manipulative, disingenuous thing. I think you should, through and through, first and foremost, be honest about your interactions and who you are and how you speak. But if you're just mindful about maybe some things that you didn't realize you weren't wording the best, or maybe some phrases that you use that just subconsciously make people feel a little bit uneasy, and you switch those over, that is all the more putting out the right energy that maybe more aligns with the type of person that you feel like you are or you're trying to be. And I also really believe that it genuinely affects your own subconscious, maybe more than I even realize. I am kind of more oriented on how other people's subconsciouses are soaking in who I am as a person, because I kind of feel like I am not really worried about how I think I am as a person. I'm in here already. I know who I am, but um, there's certain little tactics that people like to use that I think are really fun and effective, that I probably should take some advice on and be better about. One of them particularly being about changing a phrase from I have to I get to. So going home and being like, you just finished your long shift and you're tired and you go, oh, I have to work out, right? And maybe it's a little woo woo, maybe it's a little stupid, but saying, oh, I get to work out, or I'm going to work out. Even if you have to put yourself in the framework of one day you'll be old and decrepit and won't be able to bench press like you can right now, or squat or RDL or whatever you want to call it, you won't be able to do that forever. You won't be able to get that pump. You won't be able to get that endorphin rush. You won't be able to get that clarity and those benefits in the same way that you can right now. You get to work out. You get to exercise. It's a privilege. And taking on just that shift and how you speak about it will quite literally change how it feels going into it. And I'm willing to bet change the probability of you actually going through with it. And I know that there are certain really, really interesting, like actual studies that have been done on this in like the linguistics sphere. Pardon my drink. I know that there have been certain, and I'm getting really vague here. I would love to be as informed and educated as I was when I was actively listening to audiobooks. So bear with me as I go. There was this one time that this one thing happened, and then you guys can fact check me later. But I know that there have been studies that have been conducted on particular languages from, whether it be like certain kind of like disconnected tribes of people who kind of still live in a much more like hunter-gatherer society, or I don't know if these are just like more dead languages, but there are certain languages that don't even have a future tense to them. Everything that they speak or say is current tense. And I know that there are direct links to those societies of people who speak those languages having more tendencies towards like scarcity mindsets, because they're not really thinking or planning ahead as much, because their mental framework that they have set up culturally is not giving them the same amount of like headspace to plan ahead in the same way. And to think if like, basically to kind of like probably oversimplify that, maybe butcher it a little bit, to think that because these people aren't speaking in future tense, it is genuinely changing the way that they behave completely as a whole group, not even just individually. Imagine what that is doing for you. And I'm not one to believe in manifesting. I don't particularly believe in fate. I think that most things are action and reaction, and most things are consequences of that. So I'm not the type of person that buys into the idea that you can just like manifest like a good career, or manifest like a partner to come into your life. I think that, funny enough, I think that people who do manifest in that way, where they're like, if I speak about it, it'll come true, it'll happen. I think sometimes they get the right outcome, and it's like when you're doing a math problem and you get the correct solution, but your work was wrong. I think that they, whether or not they are realizing it, are leveraging a really powerful psychological lever here that is actively, constantly molding and prepping the mind for a certain headspace and for a certain cognitive mode that will up the odds and probabilities of them performing well in an opportunity to get the thing that they want, or putting themselves in more opportunities to get the things that they want. And I think they kind of attribute it to more of a woo-woo spiritual vibes, chakra, energy, you name it thing. But when people are like, oh yeah, I manifested this and it worked, I'm like, it probably did, bro. Like, I don't believe in that, but I still think that you did something right. And I think honestly that the people who are in that camp are probably better off and happier and maybe get what they want more than the people who are cynics or inactive pessimists. So there probably is some truth to that. But I don't know. I also am a big nerd, as anyone here knows, and that doesn't just pertain to Pokemon or Star Wars movies. I also am a big nerd about like linguistics and etymology and the I don't know, beautiful world of literature and language and poetry and all of the ways that these words can tell a story or have some meaning. One of my favorite like little tidbits of that is I believe it's Greek or Latin, one of the two. Here we go. I'm saying things that are Googleable that I don't know. But the root word for horn is Cera, Cera. And I love learning little nerdy, like this should be a question for a test in a AP Lit class, not some goofy thing that I'm telling my coworkers, but I love learning little fun facts like that because you revisit certain words and you hear the word like triceratops and you go, oh, 3 horns, tricera. So many words have like a really cool story to them, almost lore like, that explain why they got to where they are. You can go through our calendar and find all of the ones that were based off of numbers like November, December. It's NOVE for 9 and DEC for 10. We could have had a, perfect numerical calendar based off of the etymology of these words. But then you got July for Julius Caesar and August for Augustus, and everyone wants their little bit of history, their little bit of legacy stamped into the eternal march of humanity. So you have Thursday for Thor's Day, all that fun stuff. And you learn this stuff, and I don't know, it makes the world around you a little more colorful, adds some flavor, some spice. And the reason I bring this up is because I think that it acts as a really fun incentive for also kind of just discovering the beauty of language and wording and being able to conduct a vocabulary kind of like a conductor would for a symphony or for a choir. I think it's super fun, and the more of these little tidbits and fun facts that you know, the more it kind of sticks with you, and the more of a string you have to pull at and follow that interest. And I'm more or less speaking for myself here. I know some people could not give a shit, and they're like, "Oh my God, this guy's romanticizing words on a solo monologue podcast." But if you open up a little bit and you allow yourself to have some fun with it, I think it's super, super interesting. And when you have that in your artillery or in your arsenal, it allows you to get a little bit more involved and passionate with the way that you word things, the way you come off. I used to be really big into writing my own poetry. I even used to go to a poetry lounge like every Tuesday down in LA. I had a blast. And I was this close to getting on stage, believe it or not. I almost did spoken word poetry in front of a crowd. But I swear, guys, it was so cool. If you were there, it was so cool. It wasn't cringy at all. But I don't know. I think it's beautiful. I think it's amazing. And poetry is a great way, even if it's by yourself with a notebook, to exercise that muscle and find yourself to be a little bit more savvy, a little bit witty, a little bit more on top of your game. And it's, I don't know, it's always a fun way to spice up conversation and social dynamics and impress people. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to kind of reel it in and wrap it up here, but all the way from the way that you come off, the way that you affect other people's subconscious, the way that you affect your own subconscious and how you feel about yourself, the way that you affect others that you're disagreeing with, the way that you sway or influence the outcome of a serious topic with a partner, family member, or friend. I really think this stuff matters. And I think the online discourse has done nothing but sabotage this very important principle. And hopefully, as the generation of people who, the more I talk to people my age, say, I'm going to be very particular about my kids, whether or not they're going to be able to have social media, what age they're going to get a phone, what they're going to be exposed to. We were exposed to all this shit like it was the Wild West. There was no filters on anything. And even when there were filters, they didn't work. And so hopefully, all that to say, in a day and age moving forward, where maybe we're going to be a little bit more particular about how we conduct ourselves online and in person. I wish that moving forward, one of those things that we take with us is how we word what we mean. And with that being said, guys, I think this is episode 20. I think we did it. And as always, a big, fat, huge thank you to everyone that's been along for the ride. And yes, I went on my phone to confirm again if it was episode 20. But yeah, we're here. We're doing it. I've a little bit of a, before I wrap up, just a little bit of a quick side tangent about how I've been feeling about the podcast. And then I'll send you on home and you can go about your day. But I've been putting a lot less pressure on myself than I originally was for perfectionism, for making sure everything's great as soon as fucking possible. And I've kind of just been letting it ride out. I want to make sure that I'm putting something out for you guys. I want to make sure, first and foremost, that I am sticking to my consistent schedule and getting used to what this work-life balance feels like. But I don't know, it's felt good to not lack in my performance and also not lack in self-imposed dooming pressure. So I think I'm adjusting. I think I'm acclimating. I think I'm getting more used to this. I'm sitting in a room by myself talking to a camera with no one else in here, so I gotta be somewhat comfortable with this. But it's been nice. It's felt nice. And that's just kind of a little update for you guys where I think we're on the right track. I think I'm getting in the right headspace to build a healthy relationship with this. And I think that is going to be the right ingredients to be able to put out the best possible stuff for you guys. So there will be some exciting guests coming soon. I'm already kind of starting some certain dialogues and conversations with people because there are certain guests that I've been more or less like putting off having on until I had video up because I think that their story or what they are doing is awesome and super interesting. And I want to be able to provide a visual video. Listen to me. It's late. I want to be able to provide a video for you guys as well if you really are locked into what they're saying. And I hate the thought of someone being like, fuck, I wish I could watch this too. So that's why I've held off on a lot of people. But we're here and we got the green light and we're locked in and ready. So beautiful, exciting things to come. I hope you guys enjoy and are along for the ride with me. That being said, this was Unserious University, episode 20. I have been your host, Tub. Thank you for being here, and we will catch you on the next one.